Yo, what's up, YouTube world? My name's Jose. I'm back to read the nbcc Code of Ethics. I'm on the supervision and consultation section, currently on page 7 of the manual. So, supervision, number 41. Counselors who provide clinical supervision shall obtain appropriate training, including continuing education concerning current clinical trends, in order to meet the needs of their supervisees and the clients they serve. Counselors who provide supervision services shall provide accurate written information to supervisees regarding the counselor's credentials, as well as information regarding the process of supervision. This information shall include the conditions of supervision, supervision goals, case management procedures, confidentiality and its limitations, appraisal methods, and timing of evaluations. Counselors who act as counselor educators, field placement supervisors, or clinical supervisors shall not engage in sexual or romantic intimacy with current or former students or supervisees for at least 5 years from the date of the last academic and or supervision contact, whichever is later. Prohibited intimate sexual or romantic engagements include in-person contact and electronic interactions. Counselors who provide clinical supervision services shall keep accurate records of supervision goals and supervisees' progress. All supervision-related information shall be treated as confidential, except to prevent serious and foreseeable harm to client or others, or when legally required to do so by a court or government agency order. When a supervisor receives a court or governmental agency order requiring the production of supervision records, the counselor shall make reasonable attempts to properly notify the supervisee. In case in which the supervisee is a student in a counselor education program, the counselor shall release supervision records consistent with the terms of the supervision arrangement with the counselor education program. Counselors who provide clinical supervision services shall intervene in situations where a supervisee is impaired or incompetent and potentially placing the clients at risk. The clinical supervisor will notify the supervisee of any concerns and provide recommended or required steps to seek assistance. The supervisor also may take steps to end supervisee services to protect the client and may only resume services after the completion of any recommended or required remediation. 46. Counselors who provide clinical supervision services shall not have multiple relationships with supervisees that may interfere with the supervisor's professional judgment or exploit the supervisee. Supervisors shall not supervise friends, family, or relatives. When a dual relationship cannot be avoided, the supervisor must discuss risks and benefits with the supervisee prior to engaging in supervision and document the discussions in supervision records. Counselors who provide supervision services shall provide supervisees with regular and substantive feedback throughout the supervision process. Counselors shall promote the welfare and continued education of supervisees by discussing ethical standards and practices related to supervision, as well as legal standards that regulate the practice of counseling. 49. Counselors who provide clinical supervision services shall establish procedures for responding to crisis situations related to supervisees and the supervisee's clients. These procedures shall be provided both verbally and in writing to their supervisees. A clear protocol and guidelines shall be made available and communicated to the supervisee in the event of the supervisor's absence. Contact information for an alternative supervisor shall be provided to the supervisee in the absence of a supervisor. This section is a consultation section. Number 50. Counselors who seek or receive case consultation services from another professional shall document consultation in the relevant client's records. Counselors who seek clinical supervision and consultees shall promote the welfare of the client by selecting qualified professionals who are trained and can competently respond to the identified issue of the client, supervisee, and or student. Counselors who provide supervision services to supervisees who are practicing under the supervision of more than one supervisor, field placement, and university supervisors shall exchange contact information and communicate as appropriate with other supervisors about the shared supervisee's performance. Counselors who act as a university field placement or clinical supervisor shall ensure that supervisees provide accurate information to the clients about the supervisee's professional status, including whether the supervisee is acting as an intern or licensed counselor. Counselors who seek consultees shall protect the client's identity and confidential information and unnecessary invasion of privacy by providing only the client's information relevant to the consultation. Brief collaborative conversations between a counselor and other professionals are considered consultations as long as no identifying client information provided and needed not to be documented. Counselors who provide consultative services, consultants, shall establish a written plan with a professional seeking assistance. This plan shall include the identification of the primary client concern or issue, consultation goals, potential consequences of actions, evaluations, and/or future steps. The consultant shall document such information in the relevant professional records. Counselors who provide consultative services, consultants, shall use and provide the consultees accurate information regarding their consultation qualifications and credentials related to the identified concerns or situations. 57. Counselors who act as university field placement or clinical supervisors shall require that supervisees provide the supervisor's name, credentials, and contact information to the supervisee's clients. Testing, appraisal, and research. 58. Counselors shall protect the confidentiality and security of client-related tests, assessments, reports, data, and any transmission of clients-related information in any form. Counselors shall not release any information related to the client, including the results of tests and assessments, to any party other than the client without prior written consent, except as required to prevent clear or imminent danger to the clients or others when authorized by written agreement with the client or when legally required to do so by order or court order or governmental agency. Counselors shall use or interpret only the specific tests and assessments for which they are qualified, including meeting the qualification of having the required education and supervised experience. Counselors shall only use current, valid tests and assessments specifically necessary for the provision of quality services, and that have carefully considered in terms of the instrument's validity, reliability, psychometric limitations, and appropriateness for use with regard to a particular population or client. Counselors shall recognize results that are clinically significant for a given client test and assessment and shall document in the client's record how the test results will appropriately used in the counseling process. Counselors who develop tests or assessments for measuring personal characteristics, development, diagnosis, goal attainment, or other appropriate clinical uses shall provide test users with written valid information regarding the benefits and limitations of test instruments, including the appropriate use, test results, and interpretations. Counselors who develop tests and assessments for measuring personal characteristics, development, diagnoses, goal attainment, or other appropriate clinical uses shall identify to users of the test assessments or other potential sources of comparable information and shall explain to clients or provide information on the importance of basing decisions on multiple sources rather than a single criterion. 65. Prior to use of a test assessment, counselors shall provide complete information to a client regarding the format of each test and assessment, the test administration purpose, and the desired outcome, risk, and limitations. Counselors shall have reasonable basis for believing that the information provided is understood. Prior to use of a test or assessment with a client, counselors shall seek information about a test's normative groups and limitations for use that may affect the administrations or interpretation of results. If appropriate, the counselor may provide a referral to another qualified professional who specializes in the evaluation of individuals with similar conditions. This referral shall be documented in the client's record. Counselors shall follow administration and interpretation protocols for all tests and assessments, including the use of appropriate computer software. Counselors shall understand and address any issues of access and disability when using test assessments. 68. Counselors shall comply with identified information and data security protocols identified by the test publishers when using published tests and assessments. This concludes pages 7, 8, and 9 of the NBCC Code of Ethics for LPCCs.